Hi, Computer Studies Ted. We're going to be taking a look at how we can contain our website better. As you can see, it's a little bit like blah, just kind of spreads out. You might not even notice that because you might be working with your website sort of like in the side, and then it looks like it's all in this nice column. But when you stretch it, look, it just stretches forever. And if your monitor was big enough, it would keep stretching more and more. That's not really how websites work, right? They're usually contained within a particular format. So we're going to be start looking at how we can do that. We are just going to look at containing our website in a single box. And things will be either outside of that box or inside of that box. Later on, we'll see how we can arrange things into a grid so we can have multiple columns. But today we're just going to have one box for our website. And for a lot of websites, that's a all you'll need. And then later on, we'll take a look at more options for column layouts and other kind of interesting alignment of things. Okay, so the thing we're gonna have to learn about right now is gonna be the div tag, DIV. Div is basically it stands for division, and it can isolate a part of your website to be inside of a box, some kind of a container. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to just put something into a box. I'm going to put in three things I like into a box. So the div tag looks like this, div, and then I can put slash div. Oh, I typed it in, so thank you so much, Sublime. I don't love that feature, to be honest, because I forget that it's going to do that. Anyways, here it is, div slash div. It's basically going to now have a box around this thing, but the box kind of starts out invisible, so it won't look that exciting just yet. If we put it back on, if I refresh, you'll be like, there's no box here. Well, there is, and we can adjust that box. So in order to make it visible, we have to apply some CSS to it. So I am going to just, demonstrate that this exists by going to our style part of our website, and I'm just going to add in a div. And I think I'm going to stick it, I don't know, I guess it doesn't really matter. I'll stick it in here. Maybe I'll just make this text a little larger, hey? Okay, so what are some ways we can make it visible? So one, we can put in a width. So I can say the width is going to be a certain number of pixels. I'll say 500 pixels. And then regardless of the website's size, like the window size as we stretch it out, this div will stay at 500 pixels. So let's just save that, and then we can actually see the box, sort of. See how this part shrank in? That tells us like this part here is inside of a box. To make it even more visible, we'll add a couple other properties. We can say border to put a border around the box. And I'll say it's 2 pixels, black, solid. This is the size of the border that goes around our box. That's the color of the border, and this is the style of the border. There are some other styles you can choose from, dotted and so on, but we'll see those options later. I mostly want to just make sure that you can see what the heck a div is, because I added this code and a lot of students will wonder, hey, what's a div? I still don't get what a div is. So hopefully you'll see now that I'm styling it, we'll see what it looks like. So I'll refresh, and hey, there you go. There's a box around this now. So it's looking, I don't know, it's not amazing, but it's looking okay. So there's a few more things we can do with a div, and you can put in multiple divs in different places in your website. And technically you can style them differently, but that'll be for a different video. Also, we can just put everything in one big div. So let's take a look at what would happen if I put everything in the div. So how do I move things into the div? Well, I just take the open tag, I'll cut it, Command X, by the way, or Control X, cuts, and then I'll just indent everything. So if I put the starting div now, then my H1, my paragraph, all the way down to here will be in the div. I'll keep on going. I'll go take all this stuff and put it in the div too. Now, we don't want to put the body in the div. The body is behind the div. So the div is a box inside of the body. So body's got to be outside, div is on the inside. Okay, so let's refresh now and see, hey, look, our whole website is now in this column. And, for better or for worse, I'm not saying this is necessarily perfect, but it's kind of interesting and we can do some fun things with this box. So one thing we can do is center the box. We can put the box in the middle of our page, and let's see what that looks like. It's weird, actually. Not gonna lie. It doesn't actually read very nicely. You would think it would be like a line center or something like that, but no, it's something called left margin and right margin auto. So you type in left margin and right margin auto, and that's going to center it. And auto basically means it's going to, automatically push as hard as it can, and the left on the outside and the right on the outside will push, and they'll like center it into the middle. Oh, I didn't save. There we go. Refresh. Hey, still didn't work. Let's go see what might be wrong. Left. It's margin left. Dope. And margin right. Actually, notice you can see how I made the mistake there, or you can see how it's trying to tell me it's a mistake. Normally, it's italicize these things, right? If it's not italicized, there's a good chance you made a mistake. And also, if you type in margin, you can see like, oh, there's all the things here. So, it can help you to pick them as you go. So margin right, auto. So let's try that again. Refresh. Hey, it centered it. Before we go any further, there's a bunch of other things we can do with this, but before we go any further, let's go take a look at the box model. This is specifically about the div and anything that behaves like a div and how you can describe, like, what is margin, what is border exactly. So this is what's called the CSS box model. So our content is the stuff like the paragraphs and the H1s and the images and all that stuff is the content. So the border is pretty obvious. That's like a line that goes around it. Padding is the space between the content and the border. Margin is the space outside of the border. So that's why we centered it using margin left and margin right. That's the outside space. You can also do a margin top. Remember, that's the outside space. So what do you think is going to happen if I do margin top? I'll put in a number like 200 pixels or something. So that's the margin on the top of the box. So what that's going to do is going to make 200 pixels on top and push this box down. So I'll refresh. Oh, I screwed up again. Margin top. Maybe I just put it a little bit more. 300. Refresh. Oh, I don't know. Oh, it did work. I just had to scroll up. So it worked, but I didn't scroll up. So there it is. That's a little bit insane now. I don't know. But that can be fun, actually. I kind of like the style where you put your header outside the box. And then you make your header enormous. So I'm going to do this. H1. This has nothing to do with boxes, but, I don't know what happened. I'll make a separate rule for H1 size, font size. Let's make it like ridiculous. And then we'll see like, boom, it's huge. Oh, it's so big though. And then maybe we'll center the text. Oh yeah, I don't know if I've talked about that. Text align, center. And then maybe this margin top is a little extreme. So I'll set it to 1. All right, there we go. And so here's my box. Everything is inside of it. That's the margin top there. And I got a big thing on the top. Another thing that's nice about divs is you can set the margin. So as we talked about, the margin is the space between the border and the content. So margin, it's not very professional to have your content right up against the side here. I don't particularly like that. It looks a little messy. So what I like to do is, go and change that. So what I'll do is I will put padding inside. And you can do padding left and right, and just like you did with margin. However, I want just it uniform. So I'll put like, say, 20 pixels. Maybe I'll make this a little bit wider just so we can, see things better. So I'll do that afterwards. So here we got 20 pixels now. So watch where the padding goes. I just changed padding, right? And it should go on the inside of this. So when I refresh, see how there's like a gap there now? The space now is there everywhere on the other side as well, and so on. That's called padding, the space between the border. Okay, what else can we do with our divs? So another thing I like to do with border is called border radius. So you can round the corners on the edge. So if you say border radius, then you can stick a number in here, which I believe is a number of pixels that is like the radius of a circle that would fit into the corner. So I'll put something like, kind of big just to make the point, 100px, and I'll save that. And you'll see that the borders round themselves on the edge. See how they're now rounded on at the edge? And I put a big number, so it's going to kind of mess things up. It's a little extreme, but we can adjust that. So maybe I'll make it like 20 pixels, and you can just have some rounded corners going on in the side there. Yeah, and that might match your style, or it might not. So you not have to use it. Last but not least, we can have a separate background color here inside of the div that's separate from the background color in the rest of the website. So maybe something I'd like to do is make this color here our background for our div. I don't know. I'm just going to throw that in there. So just like we have a background color for body, I can make a background color for the div. And what was that color? I think I'm using background color, this one here for my H1s. So I'll stick that here instead, or in addition. And then I refresh, and just a div will have that. Oh, no. I got the wrong color. It did change it, but God, it's so ugly. It's okay. We'll make lots of fun mistakes as we go. Whoops, it should have been the background color, I guess. My apologies. And you know what? It's totally fine to try things out and they don't turn out, but then you learn from it. So that's cool. There we go. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily amazing or anything, but it's clearly, separate from the background. Um, let's see. I guess one last thing. Maybe I'll put a little bit of margin on the bottom because I can't scroll very far. I kind of don't love the margin top is a little extreme. So I'm going to stick that to 50, and I'll probably put a margin bottom as maybe 100 pixels just to make sure I can scroll down. And then last but not least, we'll put a little, there we go. I'm going to put a shadow on our div. So our div can cast a shadow. You can cast a shadow from other things as well. I'm going to put in, I believe it's box shadow. And then, I have to look it up. I believe it's kind of similar to border. I might not be prepared for this one. I'll have to think about this one. I'll have to look it up. If you're ever in doubt of how does CSS element work, you can always go search, in something like W3 Schools and look up like box shadow, and you'll probably find it. Oh, there we go. So here's an example of these numbers here are the offsets, and this is the color of the shadow. So maybe I'll just steal those numbers here. So it'll be kind of offset by 5 pixels. I forget if this is left or right or up and down. I think this is up and down. And then 10 pixels over. You can put in negative numbers here to shift it in different directions. This is sort of horizontal and vertical offset. And that's the color we're going to use. It's not always the right choice to use a black color, by the way, for a shadow. But anyways, if we refresh, you can see now there's a shadow that's on the bottom. And if I was to, exaggerate this number, make it 50, we'll see that's the vertical. So it's shifted down 50, right? And then, that's a bit much. And if I change this number, that's the horizontal alignment. So it shifts over now to the side. And you can also fade it out because that shadow is super dark, right? So I don't forget how to do that, but I bet this website will tell me. Offset blur. Yeah, here's the blur. Let's see the demo. Yeah, so it's just another number right in here to blur it. So I just put in a third number, and this will be sort of a range over which it fades. So I can make it a little more sort of natural. Let's go back and see what that does. So if I refresh, See how it now sort of fades out nice and gradually, as opposed to before where it was like a solid hard thing. So you can add shadows to your divs, and man, they look pretty good. You keep experimenting with those numbers. Try out different numbers. What happens if this is 100? What if you chose a green shadow? One last thing, actually, I'll mention. You can do 0, 0, and you could choose a bright color here. So I'll just choose white, which is FF, FF, FF. And it can look like a glow. Actually, I don't know how the white will look. Yeah, it's too, you can barely see it because of the background. I'll make the background color temporarily dark so you can see what it looks like. So that would be here. Let's make the background color, just black. No, no, sorry. That's 6 zeros. Just so you can see it's like I got a glow around it now. And you can adjust that glow by, increasing, this number. And yeah, sometimes that glow can sort of, yeah, there we go. So now it looks like almost like it's glowing around the sides. So these are fun things. A lot of these fun tricks will work nicely, especially if we have a nice background image as opposed to just a plain color. So that's what we're going to look at in the next video. Okay, thank you so much, folks. I hope you had fun with divs. They're very useful and powerful, and I enjoyed, and I will enjoy playing with them more. Thank you.